Hello and welcome to Connecting Voices, a television show dedicated to producing news on social justice issues for young people in New York City. My name is Jessica Cruz-Ghanit, and today we're going to talk about the lack of quality food in high schools and its accessibility in low-income neighborhoods. According to City Limits, a New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene study found that 1 in 6 restaurants in Harlem is a fast food restaurant, and just 3% of corner stores in Harlem sell green vegetables, compared to 20% on the Upper East Side. Today, joining our discussion is Iyeshima Harris, manager at EcoStation and youth mentor for community food advocates. Also, Kristina Erskine, a manager at EcoStation and youth mentor for community food advocate, and Erik Calvo, youth member of environmental program at the Brotherhood and Sister Soul. Hello, Kristina, Iyeshima, and Erik. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
What are your thoughts on the fact that 3% of corner stores sell green vegetables in Harlem, as opposed to the Upper East Side, in where 20% of corner stores sell green vegetables? Kristina.
Well, for me, it's not surprising. Working with EcoStation New York in Bushwick, Brooklyn is where we're located. We're very used to seeing, lack of access to healthy food in low-income communities, and that's definitely something that we're trying to improve.
I agree with Kristina. I'm not surprised at all. But at the same time, people need to take charge of their environment and their community to improve food quality and food access.
Taking charge.
Yes.
Good point. Erik?
As a youth, I started working with Brotherhood so not so long ago, and working with them, I began to see the inequalities, especially in our neighborhoods that are populated with Black and Latinos, and it, of course, is not surprising, but a way to take charge, I would say, is like starting a farmers market, like we did not so long ago last year, and I think that's a way to combat it.
Sure, very good points. I have heard some of my friends saying that when they were in high school, they used to eat pizza, mozzarella sticks, hamburgers, French fries, fish sticks. And while doing research, I found this image in which, as you can see, there is a comparison between the meal that prisoners are given and the high school meal plan. What are your thoughts on this image? I found this image in which, as you can see, there's a comparison between the meal that prisoners are given and the high school meal. Please take a look. So, Erik, what are your thoughts?
I'm actually glad you brought this up and made this comparison, because I was thinking about this. I feel like as students in the public school system, they're conditioning us. We're being conditioned, and it's as if we're being trained to go to prison. The way we're treated in school, and especially with the foods that we're offered, we don't have any accessibility to good foods. So we're just being trained to be used to this poor quality food.
What are your thoughts on the image, Iyeshima?
Similar to Erik, we eat the same thing, and with the image, clearly prisoners are eating better than us, because in the image you see, like, I don't know if they're supposed to eat chicken nuggets and veggie or whatever it is, and they're eating burgers, vegetables, bananas, and all this stuff, and their plate is larger than us, and their portion size and everything like that. So yeah, clearly they're eating better than us, and like you mentioned, that's what we're eating and that's what we're having.
Right. What about you, Kristina?
I think it's an interesting comparison, but I don't feel that it's something that is very relevant in comparing the food. I mean, that's like comparing my cats are adopted from a shelter, what they eat in a shelter versus what they eat at home, like the same brand of food. I don't feel like it's something that should be compared, but I think the similarities is interesting. It is something to look at.
Great. Poet Joshua Merchant's haunting words help us understand the bigger picture about economic injustice and food accessibility.
My friend James is in the 8th grade. He doesn't have enough money to support his own diet. He's not a vegetarian, mostly out of fear of starving in his own home. He doesn't know what it's like to work in a factory, but he pictures something similar to his current public school when he first imagined farming. He dreamed of straw hats, pitchforks, cows, and barns. It was like a fairy tale. He didn't know about the mounds of metal and synthetic material used to create what he eats. Because of this twisted food system he's slave to, his body is systematically inclined to break down, like the buildings that are broke down for new shopping centers, forcing his neighbors into homelessness. At this rate, he won't be able to differentiate corporate farmers from drug dealers. Similarities are too strong, selling harmful products to innocent people for extensive profits, but like crack, the dollar menu is cheap. The ingredients are addicting. He keeps buying. When James wakes up in the morning, the most difficult question he has involving food is how much is there in the fridge? 3 boxes of generic pasta in the freezer, 1 box of Captain Crunch he might have if there's any milk left. He built walls out of sugar. Easy to hide behind the taste buds, bombarding the focus of issues in his life. It's like being high for at least 10 minutes whenever he's able to find room to consume. He's not eating to save the economy or the geological state of the planet. He's eating because he's hungry. So very hungry, the personal survival that allows for not realizing he's hurting himself in the process. James hasn't experienced the taste of fruits pure of attack by pesticides, just like he hasn't experienced a neighborhood that hasn't been attacked by bullets. Some things just go hand in hand in his life. Corruption and lack of money, money and lack of opportunities, opportunity and non-organic meals. He can't hear the cries of exploited farmers, ruined land, dirty water, abused cattle, polluted air when he bites into Big Macs. Because the cries of mothers with shattered backs from their seeds slipping into cracks with no sunlight are a little bit louder and too close to home. The stains of blood permanently marked on his flesh from a friend dying in his arms are a little bit brighter in his mind than the tears of slaughtered animals. He was raised to treat spilled milk the same way he treats spilled blood. Gotta suck it up. Doesn't matter if it's full of pus lying across the floor, his mother paid too much for it. Suck it up. Doesn't matter if wounds are fresh with gunpowder, tears won't fill bellies or heal scars. He doesn't care about eating responsibly. His responsibility is to shut down the sound of his stomach growling. He hates that noise. It's a constant reminder that he is a product of his environment, genetically engineered to fail, bloodlines to the stories of ancestors, natural habitat, shipped across the ocean in tight packaging in order to be processed into free laborers. He can still feel the whips of approval on his back. He can't take being ridiculed, being a part of 2 uncontrollable destructive systems at the same time. James is only 13. His mind wants to forget it all. His body is getting weaker. His heart, the bridge between his mind and body, is leading the way to his unhealthy soul.
If you're just joining us, this is Connecting Voices, and I am your host, Jessica Cruz-Ghanit. My guest and I, Iyeshima Harris, manager at EcoStation and youth mentor for community food advocates, Kristina Erskine, manager at EcoStation and youth mentor for community food advocates, and Erik Calvo, youth member of environmental program at the Brotherhood and Sister Soul, just watched a video to understand the economic injustice and food accessibility in underserved communities. As we saw, 70 million children live in a home at risk of not having enough food on the table each day. And that was a powerful video, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the video, Kristina?
Well, for me, obviously it was very shocking, but it's also things I already know. So it's just really hit home for me with why I do the work that I do, and it's really important to me that other people are able to see this, because most people don't make that connection between the system and food. It's something that goes unnoticed constantly. So working with EcoStation, you know, having a farm that's accessible to the community in an urban setting is definitely us trying to undo all of these forms of oppression. So it really made me feel validated in what I do.
Good. What are your thoughts on the video, Erik?
I agree wholeheartedly with what she just said. It. I'm sorry. It's I feel like in our communities, when we're not offered better qualities of food, it's sort of like a modern day genocide. Now, our communities are the oppressed communities, are the communities that have less access to these good foods, and we don't make the connection, as she said, between food and the oppressive system in which we live today. So the fact that we get the bad foods and we take the habits that we learn in school, we have bad school lunch, we take it home, my parents don't have enough money, the cheapest things available to us are bad foods. Our families, our communities just consume these terrible foods. And little by little, we end up being the community that are known for high blood pressure, diabetes, and cholesterol. And it's the modern day genocide. Slowly but surely, our communities are dying, and it's due to the poor quality of food.
Very good. What are your thoughts on the video, Iyeshima?
Well, for me, it is reality is what a lot of people are facing. And and that's why as youth we're trying to educate people, we're trying to educate our peers, we're trying to educate even people that are older than us, so that they could understand where we're coming from. And for them to see like farming as just pesticide GMOs and all this stuff, that's not all farming is. There's organic farming to that, and there's certain methods and certain ways you go about farming. And to see the abundant lots and stuff, they could make that into something positive. They could create a farms to feed the community and break that system instead of having to be blaming the system and other people. How about you uplift yourself with that and change the way you eat and change your habit? Even though your parents are not making a certain amount of money, you could change that. You could go into a different neighborhood, you could join a different community, but you could bring that to your community. Doesn't mean you have to move to that place. You could just share it with your peers as well. And that's why we're given that platform as farming and everything around that, yeah.
You know, what you're saying just, it's making me think about the fact that we live in a diverse world, right? Mm-hmm. Especially New York, it's very diverse. Do you think that the underserved communities are aware of farming, are aware of those sources out there?
They are not. To be honest, I don't really think they are, unless the farm or the community garden is within those communities, then they become aware of it. Because I'm sure if you go to a different community that doesn't have any farming, it's just bricks and everything and abundant lots, and you're gonna come and talk to them about farming and farmers market. They're gonna be like, what is that, you know? And then you slowly try to introduce them to it. I remember, since I'm a farmer and I work at the farmers market, I remember we had like mushrooms, and somebody's like, oh, you could smoke those, I don't mess with mushrooms, you could get high off them. We're like, what are you talking about? We're not selling those kind of mushrooms. Like, I understand what you're talking about, but then that's when you're gonna educate them. Or some people are like, oh, that's turtle poop, mushrooms are turtle poop. You're like, why would you say that? You try to understand where they're coming from, and then you're trying to tell them your perspective as well. And then they're like, oh, really? Yeah. And then we have cooking demos so that they could try new stuff. And if they don't like it, then we'd be like, then maybe next week we're going to make a different way for you to like it. And we teach them how to do that as well.
Sure. So it's a matter of having workshops available for the general public to know what do they have, what can they use in order for them to eat healthy.
Yes.
Very good. So basically, many children and teens are only counting on the meal that the schools provide them for lunch or in the $1 menu after school, right? Mm-hmm. This makes me wonder why underserved communities are receiving unhealthy meal plans at school, Kristina.
Well, in my opinion, obviously, with everything, it's all about money, the lack of funding that these schools receive. But it's no coincidence that the schools in the lower income communities that have people of color receive less amount of funding for the schools. So I definitely feel like it's something that has been put in place to keep these students down, and it's definitely not fair. It's not conducive to a good learning environment, and it's not productive. And like in the video, after school you didn't get to eat, you're gonna go to the dollar menu, you're just gonna continue the cycle. It's in your community, and they try to keep it very tight. It's in your community, it's in your school, it's in your home. Like, you can't escape it.
Right, and definitely the restaurants, they do their best in order for them to keep people coming to them.
Yeah.
A dollar menu, having Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
that definitely helps, especially young people like us.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Eric, what do you think about why underserved communities are receiving unhealthy meal plans at the school?
Of course, it's all about money, and when we make the correlation between the prison system and public schools, I'm pretty sure they're both cheap forms of providing people with the students and the prisoners with food. I think it's very disrespectful, because it's saying you have to be in school for 8 hours most of your day, 5 days a week, but we're not going to give you good food to stimulate your mind. And when we're tired, when we're grumpy, the food is not helping. It's not helping the situation.
That is true. Why underserved communities are receiving unhealthy meal plans at school? Iyeshima?
I honestly, since I've worked so close with CFA, I know the policies that goes behind that, with free school lunch and all that stuff. I honestly think that what I've learned is that the school itself has a contract with a certain company that gives them food, and they are in charge of choosing what the school receives. So I don't think that they're the government is purposefully giving the school like unhealthy lunch, or the students unhealthy lunch is what the school is choosing for the students to eat, because they like have a certain year like contract. So if you sign the contract for 5 years, that's the same food you're going to receive for 5 years, So the school has the power to change that, but it's up to the school whether or not they want to change it for their students.
So basically what you're trying to say is that the students, the consumers of the bad choice, right? They should advocate to have healthy meal plans in school. The parents should advocate for their kids to start eating healthy in a very early stage, right?
Yes.
Is that happening?
We at Bushwick campus have the Youth Food Policy Council, and we work with community food advocates on the Lunch for Learning campaign right now. So what we're trying to do is get universal free school lunch for everyone, and we have a lot of meeting with councilmen. So we actually met with Council Member Reynoso recently, and he let us know that we can actually advocate for the school to have healthier options or better quality options. But of course it's not going to be easy, because the schools all try to order from the same company, so it's very easy for them. So if we are going to try and advocate for that, everybody has to, really have a strong sense of self. Like, we really can't waver on this decision at all.
Exactly.
Right. Very good. That would be very interesting if that happens.
It would.
One of the consequences that I have read about is bullying. You're probably thinking, how do food and bullying go hand in hand? Many times, students of low income are ashamed of using their free lunch in fear that their classmates will make fun of them. How are the students using lunch tickets affected? What are their experiences? Kristina?
Well, when I was in high school last year, I'm pretty sure not much has changed. In our school, we have this thing called free. And I know most people know the term, but in our school, it's used as bullying. You ask students, where does this word come from? And they say, well, because the lunch is free. But you don't know it's free for everyone. Some people might have to pay. Some people might pay reduced price. So it all goes back to the classism that's created by having different categories. So people do get bullied, if they see you on the lunch line ready to go. It's like they assume you need that meal and you don't get fed at home, and then you get bullied. People say things to you and it makes them uncomfortable. And then you have students who don't want to go to lunch. They'd rather stay in the library or buy something that's cheap and unhealthy in the morning and just go through the rest of the day hungry. And like Eric said, then they're grumpy, they get into fights, argue with teachers, can't concentrate. There's tons of impact on their health and their learning, but most people don't see that.
Yeah, we actually saw that in the video.
Yes.
Yeah, like he waited this young guy, he just waited until finishing his day of school to go to the dollar menu,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yes. Iyeshima, what are these students using lunch tickets affected? What are the experiences?
Like with the bullying and the stigma that's going around it, that's the biggest issue for us. And for me as well, because using the term free, like Kristina said, they attach that to free school lunch. But there's like so many free stuff that we're experiencing, like MetroCard and education is free. Like, why don't you call that free? You know, you're going to put that onto food, and it's not fair for the other students because just because their parents make like 36,000 or below 36,000, they're getting free school lunch. Okay, how does that make you feel? Like, if you have somebody, if you're sitting there, you're eating, but somebody else is not eating, and their parents have 4 kids or 5 kids, you don't know what their family life is like. For you to call them free, if you're like make fun of them or stuff like that, it's kind of disrespectful, and students are not educated on that, and that's what we try to do in our presentation. We try to educate students the simplest way we can so they can understand and see from a different point of view.
Yeah. You know, that would be very good to have that kind of education from high school. I wish I could have it since you're freshman in high school. How have you worked around this issue? What campaigns are advocating for this issue, Kristina?
Well, like I spoke about before, we're working with community food advocates on the
Right.
Lunch for Learning campaign.
Mhm.
So this is focusing on universal free school lunch.
Yes.
And last year we worked tirelessly and we actually got it passed for middle schools, only standalone middle schools. So this year we're really focusing on expansion. We're really letting everyone know all the reasons why all students need access, and we're letting them know about the bullying, everything that goes into it, because a lot of people don't see it.
Right.
And we also really want everybody to know the students' experience.
Many times when people think of healthy food, they think expensive. Organic food is expensive. Does good food have to be organic, and why?
I think when we say organic, I think well, my perspective is GMO-free food, food that don't have pesticides, and foods that aren't that are real, that I
Right.
can grow, that I can eat, that are not made. My food shouldn't be made in a laboratory, you know. So, in now and age, how we live, the way our food is mass produced, I think it does have to be organic in the sense that it has to be fresh, and I'll be able to grow it and make it myself. The same food that I'm buying in the store, I can make it practically at home if I wanted to.
Right.
But I don't think it should be expensive, because then only a certain amount of people can access that good food. People with more money can access that food, and then we leave the people with less money exposed to the fast food restaurants, because that's all they can afford. That's all that they can access.
Kristina, how can we get the community to become more aware of their healthy food options?
I'm sorry, I want to backtrack to the other question really quickly.
Oh, sure.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I do feel like good food has to be organic,
Okay.
because organic food is good for everyone, for the environment, for the animals, and for your insides. I don't think that if you buy an apple from the corner store that is full of chemicals, it is good for you, because as we know, the foods that's full of antibiotics, eventually we become immune to that, for example, and we can't take, prescription medication. We become immune to that. Also, foods being full of different chemicals, you see children growing up faster, all these different weird things that are happening to people, and then the conditions that animals are living in. It's very unfortunate. So I feel like organic food is the way to go. It is expensive, but it shouldn't be. And I feel that, having urban farms in different communities is a solution to that. Having it be local grown and it's also fresh is going to allow the lower income communities to be able to afford it. And then, of course, the higher end people it's no problem for them.
Okay, so Erik, how can we get the community to become more aware of their healthy food options?
Something that we work in the Brotherhood Soul in the program I'm a part of, we had a farmers market during the summer, a youth market, and they employed youth, and we had workshops with the communities, similar to what you guys were saying. We had workshops, and we taught our youth, and we taught the people of the community where the food comes from. It was locally grown. What the food has, what are the how you can use it. We had cooking demos, and we just need to teach our communities that there are good foods. Vegetables are good. We had an instance where a woman asked us, "Is this organic?" And when we said yes, she said "ew," and she went away. And it's just part of the ignorance.
Right.
And that's why we need to teach our communities.
Right. Kristina, how can we get the community to become more aware of their healthy food options?
Well, like Erik said, definitely having workshops and farmers markets and having cooking demos is definitely a way to get the community engaged, and they also get to taste the food, which is really important because you definitely taste a difference when something's freshly grown versus the supermarket, and that wins them over most of the time. Another thing is that we always try to remind them that farming is power. There's often the stigma that, farmers, you're slaves, and that's what we have become accustomed to thinking. But if you look back in civilizations, farming is the cradle of a civilization. If you are constantly on the hunt, like the boy in the video,
right.
You're constantly looking for food to survive. You don't have time to engage in other things. Once you have food, you can start a civilization, you can explore music, art, everything. So we always have to remind them, this is not slave work, this is powerful, and this is what your ancestors have been doing.
So basically, it's educating them regarding do not believe those stereotypes,
yes.
And also taste the food.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So we're introduced to junk food since we're little. Our parents take us to Chicken Cheese for our birthdays or to McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, dinner because it's cheap. So when we think about food, our choices are limited because our knowledge is limited. How can we break that habit if it's learned early on? Kristina.
Well, I definitely think that starts with educating the parents, but also the youth. If the youth, for example, us as urban farmers, and we're very young, we're able to go back to our families and let them know what we've learned. And if we have younger siblings, they could potentially live up to that. If not, at least our family knows, and we'll continue to educate the people that are our loved ones, because it's definitely something that's ingrained in us from we're young. But from we're young, we need to learn to try different foods, not using fast food as a treat for students or like comfort food for students like after school. There's many things that have happened that need to be, reworked, but I feel like focusing on the youth working on it now is the way forward.
Thank you all for joining us today. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you
for having us.
And if you want to follow us, please check on Facebook, the youth channel, and also on Instagram.